Make sure and like, share, comment on the post, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, JordyCulottaShow.com. We appreciate that very much. It gets us in front of more people, and that is good for us. We're planning something big for this Auburn game here coming up a week from Saturday as we're trying to get out to the public. It's very stressful, but hopefully we can pull this thing off, and if we do, we feel like it could be a home run getting out in front of the people. Remember, Brody Miller covers LSU over at The Athletic. I urge you, if you do not have a subscription, to get over to The Athletic and get your subscription for football season, as Brody Miller's got excellent insight on the LSU football team. You can follow him on Twitter at Brody A. Miller and get that subscription over at The Athletic pronto here during football season. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How you doing today, guys?
Doing good, man. The rumor mill is flying at LSU over the last 24 hours. We talked a little bit about it in our opening segment. Possibly a couple of status updates here over the next 24 hours. It looks like John Emery could get some resolution coming up here, and then the rumor mill and smoke flying and billowing out of LSU is something seems to be up with Derek Stingley Jr. What do you have anything on those two topics?
Yeah, I mean, I'll address Stingley first. At this point, I'm still figuring out what I do know, and I think we've all heard the same rumors. I can't confirm he did at least leave practice in some capacity yesterday and did not finish practice. After that, I think things are still kind of murky, and I don't know further yet exactly what might have happened there, what his status is. In terms of Emery, it's getting tricky. I think as of Monday, I think there were a lot of people close to that case who thought it was pretty much looking like a slam dunk, no-brainer, 100% case. And now I think there's still some optimism there, but it sounds like some things, in terms of what can be in the case and what can't be in the case that, are kind of, reducing that optimism a little bit. So I think today is today that is technically on the docket, and there's hope that they can get a decision by today or tomorrow. And, as Ed Ogeron has said, he's practicing every day, so if he is cleared, he is going to play right away and be the guy. But it does sound like there's just a little bit of difficulty behind the scenes there. So, while Tuesday I might have said I would guess Emery's eligible, now I'm less sure.
This was considered a reopening of the case, so if it doesn't go LSU's way or John Emery's way, there's a chance to still appeal, correct? There's still another step in the right direction for LSU?
As it was explained to me, yes, that is correct. That I believe that this is, like you said, this is basically the reconsideration that the NCAA staff is doing, and then if this is denied, then they can once again go to an appeal. Yes, I believe that's correct.
Brody, if they get him back, if all things go good for LSU and Emery, what do they get immediately, as Ogeron and you stated just a couple of seconds ago? If he's green lit, he's going to be starting.
Yeah, I would assume he is the main guy right away, especially, Ed Ogeron saying that he is the, Ty Davis Price is still the starter. I think that shows that if Emery's back, he would be, and I think what he brings, obviously, is just a guy who's going to bring some dynamic playmaking ability, a guy who is more available in kind of the, creative stuff Jake Peetz wants to do, the stuff as a receiver, stuff lining him out, wide and all that. That's stuff that isn't exactly Ty Davis Price's skill set, and it's also stuff that, two freshmen just might not quite be, ready for overall. And I think if there's anything you can learn from the Corey Kiner, performance Saturday, it's that when the offensive line isn't playing particularly well, you need somebody who is going to, make something that isn't quite there, or hit a hole a little faster, or juke outside and all that. And Emery, say what you will, absolutely brings that. So I think that's what he would be bringing, is just somebody that can help create in a situation where maybe this offensive line isn't going to make it too easy for them.
Just speculation here, and just playing a game of what if. What if Derek Stingley's not out there on defense? What happens?
I mean, I think I had somebody on the staff say it feels like deja vu of last year against Mississippi State, where, just everything kind of went wrong. Stingley got sick the day before. Jay Ward was hurt. Why am I blanking? There was another player hurt in that quarterback room, and they were basically playing Darren Evans and an injured Jay Ward, and it was just a mess. And obviously, I don't think it's going to be that or anything like that. Eli Ricks is still one of the best corners in the country, and all that, but Jay Ward's coming back, which is really helpful at safety. But of course, that really, this is already a complete toss-up game, and you're playing an air raid. That is, losing one of arguably the best defensive player in the country is obviously a big blow. Where not necessarily the, oh, shoot, now I'm 100% going Mississippi State, but it produces, I don't know, 10%, something like that, where you just lose a lot of stability there, a lot of playmaking and leadership too. So you could make an argument it's one of the like 3 weeks. You just would not want this to happen.
Ed Ogeron mentioned over the last 24 hours that his left tackle spot is wide open for competition. Who's the best candidate to fill that spot, or what makes LSU their best if they have the left tackle in place? Who would it be?
That's a really good question, and a really tough question, because there have been moments of Xavier Hill where I'm like, hey, give credit where it's due. I think sometimes we have a tendency to think replace. My gut probably still says Cam Wire is the best option. Is he a perfect one? Probably not, but I would argue he's probably the best option. And with guys like Dellinger and Bradford, it's just, how much have they been around? How much have they been practicing there? All those kind of things. And especially with Dellinger being a freshman, it's harder to have the same confidence. So I'm not saying this with like that much assurance that I'm sure, Dellinger's not ready or anything like that. But, and it's a great question, but I think I probably default to, if healthy, and Cam Wire's knee has been a problem for years, but if healthy, I kind of think Cam Wire's the safest, but I'm not sure.
Do you expect Jay Ward to go on Saturday?
That is just the sense I have gotten, throughout the week. And if you've heard otherwise, I'm always all ears.
No, I've heard the same. It seems like they're stressing that, they're pushing that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I think in Jay Ward coming back, again, I don't want to overstate it, and I don't want to, I bring up the example of how good they looked defensively against UCLA when he was there, and then how it dropped when he was gone. I'm not saying that's why it dropped off. I think UCLA and LSU's defense, deserve the credit and blame for that. But it is something, and I think Jay Ward's kind of, safety of all positions is kind of a stabilizer at times. And when you have a bad link at safety, that changes everything. So I think him being that guy, and also just he is kind of in some ways made for this game. He is a creative playmaker back there who can make stuff happen, who is more of a coverage guy who can fly sideline to sideline. And especially if somebody like Stingley is gone, he's important. Added, he's one of the more veteran guys in that secondary and all that. I can't put a value on it, but I mean, Cam Lewis has looked better than I expected these last 2 weeks, but still, it's just a lot to ask, Cam Lewis or Jordan Tolles in a game like this to be the main guy back there.
Corey Kiner has been a shining star or a shining spot for this offense over the last couple of weeks. Do you expect him to be a primary ball carrier, or at least get more time now here that SEC play is ratcheting up?
I've learned these last 4 years to never truly, whenever you think a running back, is taking it over, the load ends up being very different from what you think the next week, and it's very hard to truly predict what's going to happen. So I will not say that I think he is going to become the number one guy this week, but I do think you are going to see him consistently be more of a guy, if you ask my opinion, maybe I would say he should be the guy, but I think it was clear that what he brings is, and it goes back to the Emery thing, it's not even just the playmaking stuff where he's bouncing outside and shaking guys off, which that alone is huge, right? And it opened up so much, and that's something him and Goodwin both bring really well. But for me, it was the more selling thing was honestly that even on the plays where he was just running into a hole for, 4 yards, and there wasn't much there, I just kind of noticed when it was some of those other guys, they would go to that same hole, but just a little slower. And it would be like he was basically turning what would be a 1 yard gain into a 3 or 4 because he's just more explosive in the hole. So it's not even just the big play stuff. It's the little stuff, too. So I think it's not even that I'm saying he's better or worse or anything. I think he's just more of what they need right now.
Yeah, I agree. Brody Miller joining us here from The Athletic. He is on Twitter at Brody A. Miller. You can get a subscription over at The Athletic today. Man, I was devastated. I hated the news for Andre Anthony when it came out on Monday. You've covered him for a while now. It felt like, obviously, he was playing his best football when he suffered the knee injury. What does LSU lose in him, and then how do you expect that rotation to change? And now Mason Smith sliding outside. That's a hell of a move, right? I mean, he was dominant inside, and now you take him and stand him up.
Yeah, I mean, the Andre Anthony story is kind of, and I mean, I'm usually pretty impartial on these things. I mean, I can say that is as sad of a situation as I can remember, just because 6 years. I mean, 2 academic issues take him out 1 year. Injury takes him out a year. Just wasn't really made to be a 3-4 outside linebacker for 2 years. And then to finally kind of get to this point where he's the leader, one of the main leaders of that defense, and he's playing really good football, quite frankly. I mean, T-Bob and I used to make this joke on the show where it was like we call him the That Guy All-Stars. It was like him and Ray Anthony, guys who were always like listed as an option, but they weren't really going to be the guy. It was kind of a rude joke. Just like, oh yeah, those guys are there too. and he proved us wrong. So I think it is really sad there, but it's tough because, yes, it's a big loss. I genuinely consider Anthony one of the better edge rushers in the SEC right now, or was, but it's also the one area that LSU, probably the area where LSU is probably most set to be okay. And considering one, obviously, you had a 3-man rotation there. Now you still have Ollie Gay and BJ Ojolari, who are off the charts. And then the Mason Smith thing is fascinating to me. I won't pretend I'm sure it's going to work 100% because he's a true freshman playing a new position. That is a challenge. But he actually leads LSU in pressure rate. His 16.7% per Pro Football Focus. That's absurd. The idea that you're not necessarily losing much in a pass rushing capacity on the edge, but you might actually be solving a pretty consistent problem the last 2 years of setting the edge in the run game, holding things down because the run defense has been troubled. That actually might be a weird blessing in disguise, that you might actually not drop off the pass rush and help some other problems. And again, freshman, you will see, but it's fascinating. I have a story up today on how he kind of reshaped his body the last year and a half to go from 330 pounds to be this, kind of positionless 292-pound 6'6" guy. It's kind of wild what he is now.
He looks freakish out there, bro. I mean, like
I heard somebody say he looks like a Madden creative player.
He does. I mean, like standing next to his teammates, he looks just
bigger than
abnormal.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's
in
just
a room
like,
full of freaks.
Good Lord, who is Zero? Brody Miller joining us here. He's from The Athletic. He's easy to find over there. You can find him on Twitter at Brody A. Miller. He's been weekly here on the LSU beat with us on the Jordy Culotta Show, and always appreciate his insight and information. That LSU freshman wide receiver class last weekend, obviously we've talked about them for so long, and they really showed off last weekend. Do you imagine that they are out there the bulk of the snaps for SEC play?
It goes back to almost that running back thing of freshman receivers. There's always probably a little bit of, they're going to have great highs and then they're going to have weeks where they, just go a little more quiet. I think it's probably harder to be consistent as a freshman receiver, but I do think, I think what you can take away from Saturday is that those guys are ready. Those guys are, and the main thing is there's so many of them that, again, I don't know if Deion Smith's going to play like that week to week. Probably not. But I do think Jack Besh is going to consistently be that guy. That guy that can get those 5-6 catches, get yards after the catch, be kind of that zone breaker for those short passes and all that. I do think that's not going anywhere. And I do think, hey, maybe if it's not Deion Smith, well, Malik Neighbors is healthy now. Shoot, Brian Thomas hasn't been consistent, but he's made 2 or 3 really great plays this season already. Things like that. Chris Hilton still hasn't come on yet, and I bet he will. So I don't know. I'm hedging my bets of I don't know about consistency right now, but I feel pretty confident those freshmen in some capacity are going to be those second and third playmakers.
Brody Miller, what do you expect from Mississippi State? Any insight on Mississippi State? Have you looked at them? And
yeah, it's tricky because I think they're obviously known for their air raid offense, and as they should be, and they're a very efficient offense, but they're not exactly an explosive offense. They haven't really been creating big plays, and obviously LSU's biggest weakness is they allow a lot of big plays. Their explosiveness rates are bad. So again, that's just me playing devil's advocate for LSU a little bit, but part of me thinks there might be a scenario where that matchup actually works out okay, and obviously Stingley's health is a factor there, but that, hey, LSU's success rate defense is solid. It's if they're playing an offense that isn't that explosive, maybe it's a decent matchup. I have a gut feeling that this game kind of will be a little ugly, and it'll be a little more decided by LSU's offense versus Mississippi State's pretty darn good defense. It doesn't quite get the credit. LSU interviewed Zach Arnett, their defensive coordinator. I mean, that's a good defense. They have good corners. I think and LSU can maybe win that, but I think it's going to come down to, is LSU's offensive line ready? It hasn't looked ready for 3 weeks. Mississippi State's the first SEC D-line they're going to play. I think that's really going to decide this. So it feels like a true toss-up, and I have a gut feeling it comes down to what LSU's offense looks like.
I kind of have to agree with you a little bit, because after you see what Mississippi State did last week, where they threw the ball over 70 times, and Mike Leach is not somebody that's scared to do that in any game, it comes down to LSU's defense, and I'm just wondering if when you look at LSU's offense, are they capable of matching up with that? Will it turn into a 70-throw game versus a 50-throw game? Because if LSU can't get the run game going against Mississippi State's, like the little 3-3-5 they run, it looks like it's just going to turn into a Max Johnson versus Mississippi State's quarterback.
No, I gotta give you credit. You have some fantastic questions that genuinely make me think. I think there's a good point to that, because I think everything about the season kind of, it's not to be too dramatic, but comes down to, can LSU run the ball or not? Because, yeah, if they can't, that puts a lot of pressure on a passing game that is super talented but super still figuring things out and all that. So if LSU can't run the ball, that's, like you said, it's almost playing into Mississippi State's hand in some ways. And I do think LSU's passing game is capable of having really good nights, but I don't know if it's at that point yet where, they're consistent enough to do it every week. So that I think a lot will come down if they can run the ball. That's my short answer.
Are you making the trip to Davis Wade?
Absolutely.
Do you pack like earbuds? Do you pack something to block the noise?
As a former Clarion Ledger reporter, I think that's home to me, man. That sound. I would listen to it in bed every night, man. I love that sound.
Yeah, it's a lullaby. Enjoy it, man. Have a safe trip. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.